Have you ever been in a relationship where things ended, and you were left thinking, what did I do wrong? Maybe she walked away, and you felt like you were the one who lost everything. The truth is, sometimes the end of a relationship isn't just about what you did, it's about what you didn't do. There's an old saying, you don't know what you've got until it's gone, and if you've ever felt that sting, then you know how powerful regret can be. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make any woman regret losing you. You'll learn the key moves that will shift the power back into your hands and make her wish she hadn't walked away. Stay with me till the end. I'll give you all the insights you need to turn the tables and leave her thinking about you long after it's over. Improving yourself continuously, now that's a concept I wish I had fully understood years ago. It's the backbone of not just relationships, but personal growth, happiness, and life satisfaction. And when it comes to getting someone to regret losing you, I can tell you this, nothing speaks louder than a version of you that keeps getting better, day after day. Here's the thing, we all have setbacks. I've been there. I've had days where I felt like I wasn't enough or wasn't moving forward fast enough. But something I've come to realize is that improvement isn't about overnight transformation. It's a slow, steady climb. You don't need to become the best version of yourself in one fell swoop, you just need to be a little better than you were yesterday. And over time, that adds up. It builds momentum, and when you least expect it, you realize you're not the person you were last year, or even last month. I remember a time, not too long ago, when I was feeling stuck. The kind of stuck where you're doing everything you can but the results just don't seem to show. But I read something that stuck with me, a quote from James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. He said, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." That hit me hard. It wasn't about setting some grand goal to be the best version of myself in a year. It was about how I structured my day, the little habits I built, and the consistency I showed to myself. When you continuously improve yourself, it shows. It shows in your actions, your mindset, and your energy. And here's the kicker, people notice. They notice the way you walk, the way you talk, and the way you handle yourself. They might not even say it out loud, but I promise you, they feel it. And it's not just about being physically fitter or getting a promotion. It's about building an inner confidence that radiates because you're someone who's constantly leveling up. There's also a psychological element to this. The more you improve, the more you reinforce to yourself that you are worthy of the best in life. You start believing in your own value, and that belief is magnetic. People are drawn to those who are grounded in their own worth, who know what they bring to the table. It's not arrogance, it's just self-respect. And this is key, the best version of you isn't about trying to make someone regret losing you, it's about making you regret nothing. You grow for you, not for validation or approval from anyone else. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, "I wish I could have gotten myself together sooner." But here's the thing, the sooner you start working on yourself, the sooner you realize that you have a world of possibilities at your feet. It's easy to get bogged down by the idea that there's only one shot at love, or that everything hinges on the approval of others. But that's simply not true. What you bring to the table as you evolve and improve becomes irreplaceable. People regret losing that, not because you've changed for them, but because you've changed for yourself. And that's the most attractive thing in the world. So, if you want to be the one who leaves a lasting impression, focus on becoming better every single day. Make yourself a priority. Take care of your mind, your body, and your spirit. And remember, growth isn't a destination. It's a way of life. If you embrace this journey, you'll become a person who's impossible to forget. One of the most powerful things you can do, not just in relationships but in life in general, is to show that you are emotionally strong and independent. And I don't mean the kind of "I'm fine, I don't need anyone" independence that comes off as cold or distant. I mean the kind of strength that allows you to stand tall, with both feet planted firmly on the ground, knowing you can weather any storm. The kind of independence where you know who you are, what you need, and that you can be happy on your own. Let me be real for a second. I've had my fair share of moments when I felt emotionally vulnerable. Who hasn't? Those breakups where you feel like you've just lost a piece of yourself, or those moments when you start questioning if you'll ever be truly happy again. But here's something I learned along the way: emotional strength isn't about never feeling hurt or vulnerable. It's about how you rise after you fall. It's about picking yourself up and saying, "I'll be okay. I've got this." I remember a time when I was in a relationship that wasn't right for me, but I didn't realize it until I stepped back and gave myself space to breathe. I had gotten so emotionally wrapped up in the idea of us, in the belief that we needed each other to be happy. But when it ended, I had to learn the hard way that I could be okay without her, without anyone. I wasn't relying on someone else to define my worth anymore. And that was a game changer. The truth is, emotional independence is incredibly attractive. It doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or not, the ability to stand on your own, to not crumble every time something goes wrong, sends a message to the world that you're not easily shaken. And let's be honest, that's the kind of person that's hard to forget. You've got to understand something: if someone leaves you, especially if you've invested emotionally, it can feel like the end of the world. But if you show that you can navigate life's challenges on your own, you make it clear that your happiness and sense of self aren't dependent on anyone else. And that's incredibly powerful. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people stay stuck in relationships because they feared being alone. But what they didn't realize is that the real magic happens when you can stand alone, find your own joy, and be at peace with who you are. It's then that people start to see you in a different light. Psychologically speaking, emotional strength is rooted in self-awareness. When you know yourself deeply, your strengths, weaknesses, triggers, dreams, you begin to operate from a place of inner power. You stop giving away your emotional energy to things or people that don't deserve it. You start protecting your peace. And that energy? It's contagious. People, especially women, will notice that you're someone who is secure in who they are and doesn't need validation to feel complete. Let's also talk about resilience. Emotional strength doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It doesn't mean you don't get knocked down every once in a while. It means you learn to bounce back stronger each time. You learn to keep moving forward, even when it feels like your world is falling apart. And when you do that, when you handle life's ups and downs with grace and self-respect, you show the world, and especially the woman who might have walked away, that you are not someone easily shaken. And here's the kicker: when you demonstrate emotional strength and independence, you become less of a person someone wants to lose. It's not about playing games or trying to make someone regret anything. It's about being someone who stands on their own 2 feet, someone who respects themselves enough to keep growing, evolving, and moving forward. And that's the kind of person who sticks in someone's mind long after they've gone. Let's talk about moving on, because this right here is one of the most powerful things you can do to make anyone, not just women, truly regret losing you. The key? Moving on with confidence, and not just putting on a brave face. It's about genuinely demonstrating that you don't need her, or anyone, to be happy. Now, that's not an easy thing to do, especially when your heart is in pieces and you feel like you've lost something important. But trust me, there's a magic that happens when you let go of the idea that someone else is the key to your happiness. I've been through my own emotional ringer, no doubt. I remember a time when I was heartbroken after a breakup. It felt like the world was spinning in reverse. I found myself constantly thinking about what went wrong, what I could have done differently. The what-ifs just kept swirling around my mind like a tornado. But then I realized something: moving on wasn't about finding someone else to fill the void. It was about rediscovering myself, about reconnecting with the person I was before the relationship, and remembering that my happiness was never dependent on someone else. And that's where the real shift happens. I had to stop asking myself, why did she leave, and start asking, what do I need to do to be happy, with or without her? Because when you show that you don't need her to feel complete, to feel like you matter, that's when things change. Psychologically, it's all about self-sufficiency. When you rely on your own happiness, you don't lose your sense of worth when someone else walks out of your life. And this isn't about putting up walls or pretending you're fine when you're not. It's about acknowledging the pain, learning from it, and then taking steps forward. It's about choosing to focus on your growth, your goals, and your passions instead of letting the past dictate your future. I've had days where I felt completely lost, where moving on felt like the hardest thing in the world. But something I've learned over the years is that real growth happens when you lean into that discomfort, when you choose to move forward instead of looking back. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, "I'll never be the same again after a breakup." But the truth is, you're always evolving. You're always becoming someone new, even in the midst of pain. Let's talk about confidence, though. Confidence is the cornerstone of this whole moving on thing. And not the kind of confidence that's built on external validation, but the kind that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. When you move on confidently, you stop looking for someone to complete you. You realize you're already whole. Confidence isn't about pretending to be happy all the time, it's about showing up for yourself, even when things are tough, and knowing you'll be okay no matter what happens. And here's the truth, when you move on like that, people notice. It's magnetic. It's not about trying to make her regret her decision, but about showing her, and the world, that you are fine, that you are thriving. It's about turning the page and writing your own story, one where you're the hero who overcomes adversity, who doesn't need anyone to feel valuable. I read a quote once that stuck with me. It was from the great author, Paulo Coelho, "When you are enthusiastic about what you do, you feel this positive energy." It's very simple. That's the kind of energy you need to create when moving on. Get excited about your life again. Find those little sparks of joy that were there before, and let them light up your path. Because when you do that, not only do you prove to yourself that you don't need her to be happy, but you also create a version of yourself that is impossible to forget. And that's when regret starts to creep in, because she'll see a person who has moved forward, who is thriving, and who has found peace on their own terms. Keep your dignity intact and don't beg for her attention. Let's talk about dignity. It's not something we often think about in the heat of the moment, especially after a breakup or when you're going through a tough spot in a relationship. But here's the thing, keeping your dignity intact is one of the most powerful things you can do, not just for yourself, but for anyone who might be watching. And trust me, they're watching. I get it. You've just been rejected, maybe left heartbroken, and now you feel like you're scrambling for any shred of attention or validation. You start texting, calling, trying to do whatever it takes to get her back. Maybe you've even begged for her to reconsider, pleading with her to remember the good times, promising things will be different. I've been there, man. I've done the whole chase thing, thinking that if I just showed enough emotion, enough care, enough desperation, she'd come around. But here's the tough lesson I learned the hard way, begging for attention, no matter how sincere it feels in the moment, never brings the results you want. I'm not saying this to beat you down. I'm saying it because I've been in the trenches, and I can tell you from experience that keeping your dignity intact will actually get you further in life, and in relationships. It sounds harsh, but the truth is, begging is a surefire way to lose respect, not only from her, but from yourself as well. When you beg for attention, you're basically telling the world that you believe you are incomplete without someone else. And when you start viewing yourself that way, it chips away at your self-worth. I've had times when I've been on the receiving end of that kind of desperation. And let me tell you, it's not attractive. It's not a sign of love or care, it's a sign of neediness. And neediness is a turn-off, no matter how much you want to convince yourself otherwise. I've also seen it from friends, guys I care about, who've begged for attention from women who were clearly moving on. And I watched as it pushed those women further away, not because they didn't care, but because they saw him as someone who had no boundaries, no self-respect. Psychologically, this is rooted in something called self-esteem. When we beg, when we seek validation from others, we're placing our happiness in someone else's hands. We're telling ourselves that we're not worthy of love or respect unless someone else confirms it. But the truth is, dignity comes from within. It's about knowing that your worth is inherent, that you don't need anyone to complete you, to validate you, or to give you attention. You are enough just as you are. There's something profoundly powerful about maintaining your dignity and walking away with your head held high. It shows that you know your value and that you're not going to chase someone who isn't willing to chase you back. It's not about playing games or trying to manipulate the situation. It's about self-respect. It's about saying, I'm not going to beg for attention. I'll move on, I'll grow, and I'll live my life on my own terms. Here's a little wisdom from one of my favorite writers, Eckhart Tolle, who said, "When you are discontent, you are making yourself into a beggar." The beggar who wants something outside of himself, instead of looking within. I've realized that when we beg for attention, we're forgetting that the answers we seek, the love we crave, it's all inside of us. When you can find peace within yourself, when you can stand tall and keep your dignity intact, you make it clear that you are not a beggar, you are a king, someone who is worthy of respect, not someone who will grovel for scraps of affection. The real power lies in walking away with your dignity intact. Don't be the person who loses themselves in desperation. Don't become someone who sacrifices their self-respect for attention that will only last for a moment. Be the person who knows their worth and refuses to compromise it for anything or anyone. Trust me, when you do that, you'll become someone who is impossible to forget. And that's what makes people regret losing you. Here's a little secret: the most powerful way to make anyone regret losing you is to show them, without saying a word, how amazing you can be on your own. The key? Let her see the value she lost through your success and happiness. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, that sounds great, but how do I do that when I'm still feeling the sting of the breakup? I get it. It's not easy. But here's the truth: success and happiness aren't about chasing someone's approval or trying to win them back. It's about creating a life that reflects your worth, a life that makes them sit up and think, wow, I messed up. I remember a time when I was in a relationship where, honestly, I was so caught up in her world, her happiness, that I lost track of my own. After we parted ways, I was left with that hollow feeling of wondering what went wrong. But then something clicked. I realized that the best revenge wasn't some petty gesture or playing games. It wasn't about making her jealous or proving something to her. It was about creating a life that would make her see what she had lost. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted to show myself that I could thrive, even without her. Psychologically, this is powerful. When you're in a relationship, it's easy to lose sight of who you were before. You become so intertwined with someone else's world that you forget to build your own. But once that relationship is over, you have a chance to hit the reset button. It's the perfect opportunity to focus on your goals, your passions, and your happiness. And when you start doing that, not only will you feel better, but people, especially exes, will notice. It's an undeniable signal that you didn't need anyone else to feel complete. That's a feeling that sticks with people. But here's where the magic happens: when you focus on success and happiness for yourself, that's when you really start to shine. The shift is gradual but powerful. You start excelling in your career, pursuing your passions, working on yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally. You find new interests, meet new people, and build a life that you're proud of. And without even trying, you become a beacon of success and contentment. You stop living in the shadow of the past and start creating a future that you control. There's a quote I love by the great philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche: "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." The why is your purpose, your passions, the things that bring you joy and fulfillment. When you start living with that kind of purpose, everything else falls into place. It's not about seeking revenge or making someone regret their decisions. It's about living your best life because you know you deserve it. And when you do that, people can't help but notice the shift. They see your success, they see your happiness, and they realize, maybe too late, that they let something incredible slip through their fingers. Let me give you a personal example. After a tough breakup, I decided to focus on building my career and growing as a person. I didn't do it to prove anything to her, but something interesting happened. As I got busier, as I got stronger and more focused, I started to see the value of my time, my energy, and my efforts. People started to take notice. And without saying a word, the narrative changed. I wasn't the guy she left behind. I was the guy who moved on, and in the process, became the best version of himself. Here's the bottom line: when you focus on your own happiness and success, you stop needing anyone else's validation. You become someone who is so whole, so fulfilled, that no one can help but see what they miss. And that's the kind of person who leaves a lasting impression, the kind of person who makes anyone, especially an ex, regret ever walking away. So, now you know exactly how to make any woman regret losing you. It's all about knowing your worth, staying true to yourself, and never settling. If this video helped you understand how to take control of your relationships, hit that like button, share with someone who needs to hear this, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful content. Drop a comment with your experiences or any tips you've got for handling these situations. Stay strong, stay focused, and I'll see you in the next one.